gentlemen, and welcome back to Dinozor Gaming, where we learn to be a better player. Today we are watching a finals matchup from our locals between Han 2 on Green Force versus Iden on Cunning Base. Now, of course, Han 2 has been very popular lately, especially in the blue variant, but Green has been pretty good as well, playing a little bit differently, a bit more aggressive, less late game focused, but definitely has a lot more tricks up its sleeve in terms of good early plays, like for example using that Poe on turn 2 to get a big ship. And of course on the other side we have Iden Yellow. I think it's very clear that the beatdown this game is going to be the Han, because Iden is as hard control-y as it gets, and this is no different, especially knowing this player. He plays nothing but what he calls single player decks. You just have to break through, and let's see if Han will be able to do that. Now, of course, the camera's a little bit shakier, so I apologize for that, and there's a little bit of glare on the side of the Han 2, but that's just because he's a young man with a bright future in front of him. All production value jokes aside, we're not here for that. We're here to watch a great game, and so let's go ahead and jump into it. It looks like the first turn is immediately passed by both players, neither one of them wanting to play anything. It's pretty much what Iden wants to see, because at the moment the entire onus of the gameplay is on Han 2. Iden is content to sit back and just use single target removal on whatever Han chooses to play. Doesn't matter how big it is, doesn't matter how early it comes down. The efficient on the Iden side is pretty efficient. The removal on the Iden side is pretty efficient. That said, most of their removal is very single target focused, and what that means is that if Han is able to stick more than one target on the turn on the field at the same time, it becomes fairly difficult for Iden to keep up with that, especially if it's early enough where Super Laser Blast can't come into effect. All that said, let's go ahead and pay attention to what's happening here. We have Adigalia coming down from Han. That's immediately removed by a takedown. Unfortunately, nothing else to play with the rest of the resources that were open for Han. If he did have something else, he could have gained the momentum there. Iden was able to immediately take that down, but due to Adigalia, takes that extra 1 damage on the base, and we're going to see a second Ithkoth come down for Han. Unfortunately, there is no force token yet, so Ithkoth won't be able to be triggered. We're going to be seeing Iden search out a bounty from his deck. It looks like we're going to get an enticing reward here put in. It's just one way of getting draw power in a deck like this. Of course, there isn't too much draw power in the game in general, but playing a hard control deck like this, there aren't many options. Just in general, most of the time you're going to be relying on Dr. Pershing or cards like Enticing Reward, and we're going to be seeing Han flip open, and they're going to move on to the next turn. Now, while it looks like Han has gotten a bit of a foothold into this game at the moment with 2 units in play, the game is very far from over. We're moving into the 6 resource turn, and Iden gets to flip this turn. We're going to be seeing a bounty hunter's quarry. We're going to be seeing a bounty hunter come in and not only kill the Ithkoth, but also get that Power of the Dark Side back from the discard. On top of that, Enticing Reward gets to trigger, searching for some non-units from the deck. Honestly, at the moment, Iden is able to maintain the tempo of the game, and that's pretty much what you want. When you get to the very far late aspect of the game, and you are able to put down your big units, it's very hard for a lot of decks to compete. That said, Han 2 does have a lot of options in ways to fight back against that. There are a lot of ways to flood the board, especially in this set. You have access to not only U-Wing Reinforcement, but also the new Kelleran Beck. Now, Iden flips up, and in response, we're going to be seeing a Mace Windu come down, but unfortunately still no Force token to use any effect. So we're going to be still keeping that shield on the Iden. Only 7 damage on the base at the moment, so not much in terms of danger. Now we're going to be moving on into the 7 resource turn. This is the turn where U-Wing or Kelleran can come down, so the best bet here for Han would be to just dish out as much damage as possible onto the base, hope that we see a Super Laser Blast come down, but nope, instead we're just going to see Iden fell the dragon on the Mace Windu. Since Iden is already flipped, you'll be able to heal 1, just really maintaining control of the entire board here, making it very hard for Han 2 to come back. So now for 3, we're going to be seeing an Obi-Wan come down, the new Sentinel 3-5. Luckily, it had just enough stats to not immediately die to Iden, but it is answered by Entrenched. I forgot to mention earlier that with the enticing reward, Iden was able to search out 2 Entrenched. A great card in this matchup, not only used defensively to make your opponent not allowed to attack your base, but also to be used defensively, in this case, putting it on Iden, able to clear out that Sentinel, killing another unit, getting another heal off, and now only 4 resources open for Han. Even though Iden is tapped out, it's a very dangerous situation because if you're developing the board, you have a giant Iden to deal with. So instead, looks like Han is going to take the initiative here and try and get something done before that Iden is able to attack. Now at 8, one of the convenient things that Han can do is play a Crate Dragon, a unit that's usually only played at 9, but due to the ability you're able to cheat it out. But nope, instead we're going to be seeing a Kelran Beck come down for 7, no need to use that ability, with that 1 extra open resource, meaning that you can play up to 4 resource cost of unit coming down here. What exactly are you looking for here is the real question. You could be playing a Poe to just spread out the board, or nope, looks like we're going to be seeing another Obi-Wan Kenobi, just another Sentinel to put in Iden's path, just trying to slow it down. And ideally, I think Han here is trying to run the Iden out of resources, which is pretty tough to do considering that they skipped turn 1 and that the enticing reward was able to get them 2 cards. So it looks like as an answer, we're going to just already be seeing the first Super Laser Blast, one of the many board wipes that Iden players are playing. And since Iden was flipped, even though she herself died, you are able to heal off quite a bit with that. And they're going to be moving on to the next turn. But now, of course, with 1 Super Laser Blast out of the way, you know that there's at least 2 others into the play, some Iden lists even running more in either Evacuate or Nebula Ignition. We'll see if this player opted to play those. But at the moment, as Han, you currently need to be developing the board, ideally going wide again, because while, yes, there are other Void Wipes in the deck, you're going to have to make your opponent have them. That said, Han also has not had access to the Force the entire game, which is very unfortunate. One of the main ways to run your opponent out of resources is to have more resources yourself. So of course, if you are able to get a, for example, Ki-Adi-Mundi played, it's very useful. But looks like instead we're just going to smuggle out a Cassian that's going to immediately be answered by an Avenger. A very tough situation, especially considering aggression and command on either side, whether you're playing heroism or villainy, doesn't have an easy access to a giant body like an Avenger. The main way Han 2 decks deal with that is to either just do enough damage to it or playing a force throw on yourself, dropping one of your own big units to get rid of it. But when you've only got 4 damage on the base, this is a very grim situation for Han, and it's looking like game 1 is already coming to a conclusion. We're going to be seeing Han come down and play a Han uses the ability to bring a Poe, choosing to not pilot that Poe, instead putting 2 bodies in play. That way the Avenger attacking will not completely wipe the board. We're going to be seeing another enticing reward come down on that Poe. Just playing it slow here from the Iden, doing the right thing. Now for 6, we're going to see another Mace Windu come down. Looks to be a kind of a Hail Mary from the Han 2 player. And for 5, it's going to be answered by Bosk. Bosk here, able to not only clear the board, but also trigger that enticing reward. And considering the sheer amount of events in Iden's deck, that Bosk will need to be dealt with immediately, otherwise it's just going to get a ton of free damage coming out. And looks like we're going to be seeing exactly that, a force throw used on himself, discarding that Yoda to kill off the Avenger. A fantastic play here, but it is answered immediately by Fel the Dragon. And like we mentioned, Bosk, when an event is played, gets to do 2 damage. So Fel the Dragon not only clears the Mace Windu, but also clears out that token. So we're looking once again at an empty board from Han 2. Now, a lot of the late game strong cards from Han really need that force, and not having a way to attack here is very tough. That said, there are options, of course. While you don't have inherent ambush in these colors most of the time, you do sometimes have access to timely intervention, but looks like instead we're just going to be seeing a Kelleran back when with the sheer amount of resources available, it's going to pull out a Hammerhead and deal enough damage to finish off that boss. It's going to be answered immediately by a Power of the Dark Side. It is still a dangerous situation because we know that there is another Super Laser Blast in Iden's hand, but he is still stalling it out, choosing to not play it right away, instead uses 2 Power of the Dark Sides to clear out that board. And it's going to be followed up by a Bazine showing the hand, which is Crate Dragon and Force Throw. Crate Dragon, one of the only tools that could have potentially helped Han out here. Instead, it is discarded. This is just getting worse and worse for Han. It looks like we're going to be seeing the third Kelleran Beck. That is exactly what you want here as Han. For some reason, the players have opted to switch over the ground and the space-board. Why not? Keep it fresh. And it looks like we're going to have units all over the field. And as an answer, Super Laser Blast is just going to clean it up. Let's see if this time around they'll play the units on the right side. The space goes back on that side again. Red 5 coming down. Claimed by Iden. At this point, it is very close to running out of not only threats, but just cards in general for Han too, and that is the prime win condition for this Iden deck. You want to... Obviously, the main way to win is to make your opponent rage quit. That's what people playing Iden really want. They enjoy other people's suffering. But in this more serious situation, looks like the ground has now become the space once again. I think Han 2's player is slowly losing his mind, and I don't blame him in this situation. We're going to see a Vigilance Mill, and I'm just going to finish out my thought here. The main win condition for an Iden deck is, of course, to run your opponent out of complete cards in their deck, and the way you achieve that is by killing everything they play, but of course also relying on Vigilance to mill out their cards, and that's exactly what we see here. Vigilance mills 6, and in response, Han is going to put down a bunch of units on the ground, which used to be the space. So hoping that that second Super Laser Blast was the last one in hand, but it's going to be answered immediately by the third one, and with no cards in Han 2's hand, it's not looking very good. We're going to be seeing another Cassian smuggled out, but with 0 damage on the base and the no glory in answer, really puts this game on lockdown. Alright, and with that, game 1 is over, and we are moving into game number 2. While the players are deciding what to resource here, we're going to take a look at the deck lists here. Of course, as always, we will have the deck lists in the description below. Don't worry about it, guys. But we're just going to take a peek here at what are the potential options for siding here. Of course, on the Han 2 side, we have the option to bring in home ones, which acts similarly to Kelleran Back, just gives you more threats to work with. Aetherspite could be potentially interesting because you're able to remove some upgrades like the bounties or the entrench that we're seeing. Fell the Dragon is also a good card to answer out the Avengers or Devastators or anything else that Iden plays. What Devastator? There's no green here. What am I saying? Mostly to answer the Avengers or any other giant unit that Iden chooses to play. But of course, to note that Fell the Dragon is actually a blue card, so you'll need to pay the aspect penalty for it. And over on the Iden side, we are looking at the list. It didn't look like Iden had any trouble with the first game, but what are the options here? We have a spicy card in Execute Order 66. There are a lot of Jedis in the Han 2 deck, so that is definitely an option. Snoke is once again another threat that will need to be dealt with. You probably do not need Make an Opening, Evacuate, or Parliamentarian in this matchup. Overall, the list is already pretty heavy. We're seeing that there's not much in terms of late game. This deck list is clearly not the right one. We'll make sure that in the description there's the right one, as there is no Avenger in this list. Instead, it looks like there's 3 Annihilators. Don't worry, we'll get that fixed in the description below. And all that said, let's jump right back into the game. And with the initiative, once again, Han 2 chooses to play an Adigalia, and absolutely no response from the Iden side. Not uncommon, there are not too many early drops. And that is pretty much what you want to be seeing. It's going to be answered by a Power of the Dark Side, which will deal 1 damage due to Adigalia's effect. And now this is where, as Han, you need to develop the board wide and fast before your single target removal from the item player starts kicking in. But no, instead we're just going to be seeing an Obi-Wan come down, 3/5 Sentinel, fantastic card to be played in most matchups, not too relevant in this one. What you want to be seeing as Han is those units that spawn extra cards like Poe, like Kelleran. Of course, early on there's not too many of those, the main one being Poe himself, but we're going to be seeing a red 5 come down. And moving on to the next round, nothing too exciting happening just yet. Now we're moving into the 5 resource turn. This is where Han 2 himself flips. Han being one of the few leaders that actually don't have too much impact on the board when you are flipped over as a leader. It is more or less the same effect whether you are deployed or not, the main difference being that you get to use the effect more than once a turn. Not often does that happen because you're usually relying on playing the biggest unit possible. Now we're going to be seeing a top target come down, answered immediately by a simple swing, and we're going to be seeing a bounty posting once again, searching out that enticing reward, thinning out the item player's deck considerably, because not only are you taking a card out, you're putting enticing reward, which will potentially take out 2 cards. It's just making it so that the cards you actually draw will be more impactful, and on top of that, being able to draw 2 is pretty good when you only condition that to trigger it is to kill a unit that you want to do anyways. So we're going to see Ki-Adi-Mundi come down, and in response we're going to be seeing the enticing reward come down on it. Now if Han is going to flip himself, initiative will be claimed, and we're going to be seeing an attack, and the board is looking slightly in Han's favor here with 3 units already deployed, and going into the 6th resource turn we're still pretty far from the super laser blasts coming down. So for 6, we're going to be seeing a Vigilance come down. Unfortunately, absolutely nothing is in range of actually dying here. Yeah, nothing has 3 health or less, so we're just going to be seeing a heal of 5 from the base and a mill of 6. Nothing too crazy lost. Yoda does hurt to lose a bit, but otherwise pretty decent mill, as long as you're not losing your wide board units like Kelleran, like Home 1, or U-Wing Reinforcement. As long as you're not losing your Crate Dragons, that mill doesn't hurt you that much. You're gonna see a Hammerhead come down, clear out that shield. Iden is going to trade into the Ki-Adi-Mundi. Yes, you'll get that heal 1, you'll trigger that enticing reward, but the board is still heavily in Han 2's favor. So we're going to be seeing a Super Laser Blast fetched to the hand, as well as a Fell the Dragon. Now, just having the knowledge that your opponent has these in hand should change the way you play. And it looks like Han is going to swing onto the base, and since the initiative is claimed, we're just going to go with all the swings here. Already 10 damage on the base, and showing 11 damage on the board. Oh, lovely, we fixed the camera. Let's see how long that lasts. I'd give it a solid 3 minutes at best. Now moving into the 7 resource turn, this is where that U-Wing or that Kelleran can definitely come in clutch. Still 1 more turn before the Super Laser Blast, but you should, knowing that, you shouldn't go too wide. It looks like the player miscounted here. I tried to play that Super Laser Blast, but no bueno. Instead, we're going to be seeing that Fell the Dragon that we just fetched from the deck, played on the Hammerhead, lowering the damage output down to 6 here. With the Iden healing, that's only 2 damage added to the base, and now another 3. We're looking at 15 on base, and this is where it's a bit scary, because you know that whatever you put down is immediately going to get wiped out by that Super Laser Blast that's going to be played. So your best bet here is to play something that either has an immediate impact, or to play something you don't mind losing. The best scenario right now would probably be playing a smuggled out Cassian, for example, that will dish out that 3 damage, so even if you get a Super Laser Blast dropped on you, you can continue developing the board. But it looks like instead Han opts to play absolutely nothing, which is an interesting option because we know that Super Laser Blast is coming anyways, and it does come down. The top target finally triggers, healing a bit off Iden's base, and it is answered immediately by a Kelleran Beck. At the moment, it looks like the tempo of the game is definitely in favor of Han. Kelleran gets a Poe, which gets an X-Wing with a single card, develop 3 units into the board, so Iden needs an immediate board wipe once again, or they are in tough position. And luckily for him, we do see another Super Laser Blast that's already 2 down. And what is Han going to answer with? We're seeing in his hand that he has the option of a Home 1 or a Crate Dragon, both fantastic options here, and it looks like Home 1 is what we're going to be seeing, finally using that Force Token that we were lucky to generate, drawing an extra 2 cards. This is definitely the position you want to be in as the Han player. So with 2 Super Laser Blasts out of the way, you don't need to worry too much about board wipes here, and there is the third one. The opponent is completely out of board wipe, so if you are able to develop the board wide again once more, which is what we see here, Kelleran Beck comes down with 2 resources open, able to fetch 2 or 3, potentially 3 resources open, able to fetch upwards of 6 resources worth of units. Looks like we're getting a Poe and filling out the board in exactly the same way. That is what you want to be seeing. The initiative token is claimed by Iden. We'll see if there are any other board wipes in hand. We did see that there is the option for potentially an Evacuate or maybe even a Nebula Ignition. That said, we did also see that there was a Bounty Hunter in the Iden's deck, able to get that Super Laser Blast back from the discard, but it would be a little bit too slow. So we're going to be seeing an Entrenched here played on Kelleran Beck, bumping it up to a 10-10, but that cannot attack the bases. That is pretty much the same as having that unit defeated, since there probably won't be anything played on the ground. And as an answer, we're going to see a Crate Dragon, which is immediately going to be defeated with a Felder Dragon. Very thematic here, but the tempo is staying with Han, finally able to generate that force a second time. And you are bleeding damage as the Iden player. That is not what you want to be seeing. Spending the rest of your resources on a Bazine. Luckily able to snipe out that second Crate Dragon, but is that enough? You are currently already looking at upwards of 19 damage onto your base. 18 damage, apparently I don't know how to count. Kelleran Beck is able to finish off that Bazine. You need desperately another board wipe here. And we're going to be seeing a Bounty Hunter come down, kill that Poe, and fetch out that Super Laser Blast from the discard like we mentioned earlier. And so we are back to having something in some kind of danger in Iden's hand. So once again, Han will probably not want to develop too much onto the board. Save your big multi-unit units in your hand for the next turn. That said, you aren't really in danger of losing anything else at the moment. You have your Kelleran Beck that is able to clear out that Bounty Hunter when you want. And we're going to be seeing a Vigilance mill out some cards. Home 1 gone is disastrous, but otherwise the rest of the cards milled were not really the end of the world. We see Kelleran clear out that Bounty Hunter crew. Iden heals for 1. Gungi is still able to attack, but all the resources are open here for Han. The Force is available. So your best bet is to, if possible, play something that will draw some cards. We did see a Ki-Adi-Mundi in his hand. Opts to instead just attack here. Looks like both players are deep in thought here, trying to decide what the best course of action is. Iden is searching through the discard, trying to see how many of those big threats are already gone. It would be a very sad day if you were to immediately Super Laser Blast and it is answered by another Kelleran Beck or another Home 1. At that point, you are probably running out of steam here, and you're already at 16 damage on your base, only 14 more to go. And believe it or not, the last 10 points of damage are usually easier to do than the first one. Now moving into the next turn, Iden does have the initiative. We're most likely going to be seeing a Super Laser Blast play here. Or at the very least, another sort of Felder Dragon to get rid of that Mace Windu. And nope, that's exactly what we see here. Super Laser Blast does come down, wipes up the board. Let's see if Han has an answer to fix the board up. We're going to be seeing a Poe come down, generate that X-Wing once again. Still no pilot, which is, I believe, the right play here. And it's going to be answered by a Bazine here. Oh, looks like that Bazine is going to be able to snipe out that Kelram Beck. Yep. Very unfortunate. Should have played that first, most likely. And we're going to be seeing a smuggled out Cassian here, healing for 1 on the Iden side, but a General's Blade does come down, dealing 6 damage. Of course, Cassian is not a Jedi, so no extra added effects, but at the moment I don't think you care about that. You just want the raw damage output. Once again, Iden with the initiative here, but this time we do not have a Super Laser Blast, and we're going to be seeing if there's an Evacuate or a Nebula Ignition. That said, with the General's Blade on the Cassian, Nebula Ignition isn't going to do too much. And nope, instead we're going to see an Entrenched come on that Cassian, making it so it cannot attack base. Still, even without that Cassian, we are showing 5 damage here, 3 of which immediately goes on the base, putting Iden at 24. And looks like we're going to see a Vigilance here to heal off 5, finish off that X-Wing. And Cassian's going to finish off that Bazine. And honestly, Iden already down to 3 cards in hand. Even with that Bounty Hunter crew coming down and getting something from the discard, you are almost out of resources. But we do now have another Super Laser Blast in their hand. I am getting tired of this game just watching it. I can only imagine what that Han 2 player is feeling. And we started seeing the first fatigue damage. We are out of cards in the Han 2 player's deck. Due to that first draw, we see 3 damage. Annihilator does come down, kills the Hammerhead. There is another Hammerhead in hand that is defeated. And now there is a giant unit that you need to take care of, a 12-12 in space. And you do not currently have a Force unit in the play, the Force Throw. Your only option here is to hope that whatever you drop doesn't immediately get killed. We're seeing a couple of Mace Windu's, an Adigalia, and Obi-Wan in the hand. Nothing for immediate damage. And we did see that Super Laser Blast drawn. So that Adigalia does come down, answered by a quick Iden leader ability to heal back down to 18. And another Cassian does come down, the first one being defeated, dealing another 3 damage to the base after Iden claims the initiative. Now, while Han does still have 5 resources open, we know that there's a Super Laser Blast, so developing another unit on the board is pretty dangerous. And it looks like we're just going to be seeing a pass here, nothing to draw on Han's side, instead taking 6 damage to the base. The Annihilator is going to be able to apply another 12 right away, so unless you are able to kill off Iden this turn, you're most likely going to be dying to the fatigue damage. We're going to see a Bounty Hunter's crew come down, finish off the Adigalia, search off pretty much whatever you want. Looks like we're going to get a Vigilance here, just to be able to have a little bit more healing, making sure that there's no shenanigans to deal out that last 9 damage necessary. Now, we are down to only 9 damage left, and we have a Cassian in play here, so there is a potential out, considering that there is a Mace Windu in the hand of the Han 2 player. If you have a Timely Intervention, that's exactly what it is. We have a Timely Intervention here with the potential of, looks like instead we're going to take that back, we're going to be hitting for 3 onto the base, putting it down to 24. But it is answered by Vigilance, maybe because we just saw the Timely Intervention, because otherwise that Mace Windu would have been able to come down and ambush and deal at least another 4 damage to the base. Still an option because you can use the Force here to get rid of the shield first, and with the Overwhelm you're doing another 4 damage to the base, you're regenerating that Force, which is lovely, but that extra healing just puts you right out of the range to kill your opponent. And it looks like we're going to be seeing a claim and pass, another 6 damage dealt to the base, already up to 15. So that 12 swing from the Annihilator would take you up to 27, just 1 point away from losing. So you're not dead just yet, but we do have an Evacuate. Everything does go back to your hand. Are you able to develop something and deal damage this turn? It is fairly unlikely. You do know that that Annihilator is most likely going to come back down. you still know that your opponent has a Super Laser Blast in hand. And we're going to see a top target placed on that Mace Windu, and we are completely running out of steam here on the Han side with only 4 cards left in hand. And looks like we're calling it, and that's it. Game number 2 is over. And all right, and with all that said, guys, thank you once again for watching. I'm just going to put the deck list here once more. We'll have the updated and correct deck lists in the descriptions below. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I will see you guys next time.